Pierre.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Harris, for that wonderful introduction. It's hard to believe that the son of a man and a woman who could not read or write, 13th child born to them, would be chancellor of a great law center and then chancellor, becoming July 1, chancellor of Southern University and A&M College, my alma mater. Very few people get to assume leadership roles at their alma mater. So I realize that this is a special opportunity for me and a special occasion. I bring you greetings from Jaguar Land, Southern University system, which is the only historically black college university system in America with 5 constituent institutions. Southern University and A&M College is one of those 5 constituent institutions. And like many in higher education, Southern University faces challenges, will face challenges, but our goal is to make sure that Southern University is and continues to be a transformational institution. Southern University has done so many things to enhance the lives of its students, to change the landscape for so many in the state of Louisiana and across the country and globally. And my intent is to figure out a way to help Southern University do those things going forward despite the challenges that face higher education. Now, you may have read last week that there's a potential $250 million cut that higher education may face next July unless some things are done to shore up finances for the state. And certainly that is on my mind each and every day. And one of the things that I will be doing is talking to legislators to figure out ways that we will not have that happen, because that would have a devastating impact on the state of Louisiana. Higher education provides a $7 return on investment. And if we want citizens to remain in Louisiana, we have got to create pathways for them to access higher education. Now, higher education has to change in many ways. It has to be more efficient. It has to provide what I call credentials that help students be more workforce ready. And it has to be focused on how it can have impact on the community. So one of the things that I've always talked about, especially at the Southern University Law Center, is that we are a community. We have to have impact on the community in so many different ways, whether it's economic development, healthcare opportunities, creating reducing the digital divide, creating what I call transformational opportunities for students who many of them still are first-generation students. We have a situation in the state where our K-12 system is still one of the lowest ranked systems, and yet we take students that come from those backgrounds, rural communities, urban areas, and we make them productive citizens. So how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, we have to increase the number of people in what I call workforce-ready opportunities. Now, let me tell you a little secret. And so when we look at that impact, that's an impact we need to push. And I'm glad to announce that the College of Ag will have the highest enrollment it's ever had because of that kind of opportunity base. But the key is we got to tell people about it, because so many students don't understand the importance of agriculture in a state like Louisiana, but also its impact in a global economy. We also want to increase the number of students that are involved in what we call STEM disciplines. STEM disciplines, which include chemistry, biology, engineering, environmental toxicology, all those things related to science, ag science, urban and natural resources. All those things are very, very important, because here's a reality we face. If you think it's hot now, wait till next summer. All right? Whether you believe in climate change or not, who can really look into the future and determine where we should be. We also recognize that entrepreneurship is important, so we're trying to make sure that students in the College of Business get access to entrepreneurship opportunities, and we develop new programs. Like, for example, we're developing and we're about to start an insurance program. Wow. What's the biggest problem facing Louisiana right now? Insurance. Whether there's a special session or not, the insurance problem will not go away. And if you think insurance is if we think about the for first-time homebuyers. That's another example of how Southern University can be a change agent in a community. And then we have opportunities like our Minority Business Development Center, which helps individuals with developing business opportunities, finding financing, and others so that they can be part of the ecosystem that drives the economy. We must recognize that we are a valuable resource within the community. And just like LSU drives community development and economic development in the southern end of the parish, Southern University has to be a driver of community development and economic development in the northern end of the parish. We know that we're valuable. The key is that we have to remain engaged with the community. Universities that live in ivory towers, that are contained within themselves, don't succeed. We have to be a university that reaches out to the community, that talks about some of the great things that we do, and then produce graduates that are going to be transformational. And that's a critical thing. And an example of a transformational graduate, and I'll talk first about one coming out of Southern University Law Center, is Claire Babineau-Fontenot. Claire Babineau-Fontenot last month received the highest award given to a Catholic that's given in the United States by the University of Notre Dame. It's called the Lettieri Award. And the reason she got that award is because she is the leader of the largest nonprofit in the United States called Feeding America. And if you've gone through the issues that people go through because of the pandemic and food insecurity, you recognize that her work is extremely important. And we have so many individuals within the Southern University system that do this kind of stuff on a day-to-day basis, that we have to recognize that Southern University is a place where leaders are born. I want to talk about another great Southernite, Joe Stewart. Joe Stewart went to work and had a career in food service and the Kellogg Foundation and the Kellogg Corporation. He was chair of the Kellogg Foundation. When the flood of 2016 hit Baton Rouge, it was the Kellogg Foundation that helped provide funding for a project with Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, Southern University Law Center, and LSU Law School to help people recover from the flood who needed assistance from FEMA and could not get that assistance because they didn't have clear title to their property. So that's an example of a great leader, Southern University graduate, and he always reminds us that he was the first male, along with his classmate, to major in what was called home ec. But it's much larger now. Family and consumer sciences, the whole idea of food, nutrition, so forth and so on, is extremely important. And the last challenge that I will talk about is mental health. Students today are struggling with mental health challenges. We know the impact of all of these wonderful devices called phones that are all connected, smartphones, but we know that it's changing the minds of our students. And so we are focusing on the mental health of our students to help them recognize that they have to be productive and we have to bring resources to help them deal with the challenges that they have. So I tell you, Southern University is a great place. I couldn't think of a better place to be for me because Southern University gave me an opportunity in the spring of 1977 to start an educational journey which has been both rewarding and satisfying to me and transformational. So I owe it to Southern. To whom much is given, much is expected. Thank you very much. So we'll take questions. Yes, sir.
To me, I'll be honest with you, Chancellor, I've asked a lot of questions at this presentation. This is the most important one that I have ever asked. Why is it that right now there is nobody from Southern University, the great Southern there's no leader from Southern University following up on my efforts to get that done for our sakes, especially in Cancer Alley, if nowhere else on planet Earth, sir.
Well, I don't know the specific answer to your question, but I will tell you this, that when it comes to environmental issues, and particularly Cancer Alley, that is something of great interest to me. What we have to do is this. We have to recognize that the industry in the river parishes that people are talking about that are so important can't continue to poison people in those parishes. It just can't. And if you look at one great leader who's been talking about that in a great length is General Honore. General Russell Honore has been leading this effort to rethink about how we deal with issues about carbon emissions and issues that cause cancer. Now, the Johns Hopkins University just issued a report talking about the impact of these industries in those parishes being 10 times worse than anyone has predicted. So this is a question about self. Are we going to allow people to be poisoned? Or are we going to say it's time for reform? Industry and communities can coexist. We don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And that's just a real conversation that we have to have. I don't think I'm in a position to answer your question directly, but I'll tell you what my approach will be, which is this. We have to talk about this. We have to put this on the forefront of the citizens of Louisiana.
Can we afford leaders who still stick their head in the sand?
No, we can't.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know your assessment of your education program. We don't have enough teachers in Louisiana, and are you putting any extra effort into that?
So you want to know about the education program and trying to solve the teacher shortages?
Yes, sir.
Well, that is one that is really first and foremost for me, because unfortunately we are not putting out enough teachers at Southern University, and we need to reinvigorate the School of Education so that more teachers are put out. This is a huge problem across the state of Louisiana and across the nation. And so that is one where I'm going to give it a lot of attention, laser focused attention, because until we solve that problem, we cannot fix the issues at the K through 12 level. Yes, sir.
We were talking about the funding and possible cutbacks by the legislature. What can you do now raising tuition? Is it still a two-thirds vote, or you have other options?
So as it relates to funding and potentially the cut of funding and raising tuition, it still requires, in some respects, legislative approval. But here's the real question. The real question is higher education worth the investment? The answer is yes. So to me, the approach has got to be, what can we do to make sure that we don't have those drastic cuts? I don't want us going back to what I think are tragic outcomes that came during a previous administration where higher education was cut sometimes 3 and 4 times a year. And here's what happened. It shifted the cost of higher education from government to students. Right now, higher education gets about 25 to 27% of its funding from state appropriations. In a previous decade, prior to 2014, even prior to 2010, that number was more like 70% from state government, 30% borne by students. So we have a complete reversal. And so we had to ask ourselves, was that a wise thing? And we don't have to demonize people who were part of that process to ask that question of ourselves. So some of that is a blame on the citizenry, on us. We allowed it to happen. We stood by and we're quiet. That shouldn't be. And we should ask ourselves, if we're concerned about students leaving higher education without high debt loads, then we've got to change how that works. Now, we've done some of it with TOPS. TOPS is a good program, but it's expensive. But what about all of those students who are not eligible for TOPS? And unfortunately, TOPS benefits those families that have the most capacity to pay for higher education. Those are just facts. Doesn't mean that you got to demonize the system. Georgia has a program similar to TOPS. It's a little different, but they have a program similar to TOPS. And they're driving economic development. We've got to figure out a way to change the outcomes. Too many of our students graduate from Louisiana and leave the state. Too many. Because the opportunities afforded to them are not nearly as great in the state of Louisiana. And we've got to solve that problem. Yes, sir.
Just a technical question. And you're in a new role as Chancellor. How does you split up responsibilities with President Shields? What goes does what?
So how is this new chancellor going to split up responsibility with President Shields? We're working all those things out. But I will tell you this. My primary responsibility will be focusing on the Baton Rouge campus, that Baton Rouge landmass. So when I go to a board meeting and a board member is complaining about something about Southern University and A&M College and the Baton Rouge campus, they're speaking directly to me. The president of the system is really looking at a broader perspective of the whole system. He'll be focused on a lot more fundraising because he won't be dealing with the day-to-day issues of the Baton Rouge campus. And day-to-day issues on college campuses now can be overwhelming. Ask all those college professors and college presidents that are dealing with all the protests that are happening across the country behind the Israeli-Hamas war. That can be debilitating. Now, we're fortunate we don't have those kind of protests here, but what we have to do is we have to make the lives of our students that come to Southern University and A&M College a better. We have to improve their lives. We have to give them great experiences. We have to give them opportunities that they would not normally have. Yes?
I know you kind of touched on it a second ago, but last fall, you may remember the Department of Education and USDA put out a report saying that HBCUs in America had been shorted about $12 billion over the course of 30-something years. For Southern, that was about $1.1 billion over about 30 years. Now looking forward to potential $250 million shortfall for higher education. What does that look like for Southern this time around? And is your team, are y'all having those conversations of preparing for that, bracing for that kind of impact next year?
Well, as it relates to the shortfall that USDA and the Department of Education talked about, Southern University as a land-grant institution was estimated to be shorted between $1.1 and $1.3 billion. You're right. And then if you throw in a $250 million potential cut to all of higher education, it's not just the Southern, but all of higher education, it could have a devastating impact. However, I have the confidence and the faith in believing that we can talk to legislators and policymakers and we can come up with alternative outcomes. And as far as those dollars that we've not gotten in the past, we can talk about how ways that we can increase funding so that we can make up for those dollars. We have done more with less than anybody else. And if we get more resources, we know that we can have even greater outcomes. So the question is, one, about the citizenry. What do you want for the state of Louisiana? What do you want for your children? What do you want for your future? That's the real key. And you can't shop this out to somebody else. You've got to say, we as citizens think that higher education has to be a top priority. Yes, sir.
What does the state spend on higher education, including support from the federal government?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll find the answer. I don't know what the state total spending on higher education is, so I really don't know the answer to that question. Oh, it's more than a 10% cut. It's got to be around 15 to 20% cut. Yes. So again, it's a cut we can't afford to have. But however, the Board of Regents is getting out there up front and asking all systems in September to put out plans on how they would deal with those cuts, how it would affect their operations. So we've got to figure out ways to either replace revenue or deal with cuts and think about things differently than we have in the past. Yes, sir.
When you mentioned the protest a few minutes ago, reminded me to bring up a question. Does the de-emphasis on DEI have any effect on Southern? What's your feeling on that?
Well, here's what I would tell you what my thoughts are in terms of you asked about the emphasis on DEI. So actually in the state of Texas, it's been eliminated. It's not just being de-emphasized. Arkansas eliminated. Mississippi eliminated. Alabama eliminated. Now here's what I think will happen. And I'll start with my own experience at the Law Center. I know that we're getting more applications from students outside of Louisiana to the Law Center over the years because of that particular issue. And right now, based upon the numbers that I looked at today, we have the highest number of applicants that I've ever known compared to last year and years before that want to come to Southern. We've admitted more students than we've ever had before. Now the question is, can we handle the capacity? And that's going to be driven by housing. That's going to be driven by financial aid. Of course, what I didn't mention is that the rollout of the new FAFSA process by the Department of Education has been horrendous. And there's an anticipation that there will be fewer students going to college this year because they can't get financial aid. Now, we've been battling that issue for several months, and we've been monitoring and we've been doubling our efforts to make sure that our students get through the FAFSA process so they can qualify for financial aid, because 90% of our students get some form of financial aid. They can't afford college without financial aid, and that's the reality of who we serve. And we take that challenge on with zeal because we know that we're having positive impacts on those students. Yes?
When we had Chancellor President Shields here at the press club, he talked about graduation retention rates and recruitment efforts. Where do you stand on that, becoming a chancellor?
Well, I've said that we need to improve those retention rates. We have to. We have to improve 4- and 6-year graduation rates. Why? Because outcomes are the key to driving funding, brand, and the desire for people to come to an institution. And so we have to always keep our eye on the ball. So if we can't bring students in that are going to be retained, they have not received the best experience that we could give them. Now, sometimes students aren't being retained for reasons that we can't control. But to the extent that we can control what happens in terms of students returning, we have to focus on that. So we want to drive retention rates up. We want to drive graduation rates up because we know that that's a real measure of our success as an institution. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
another question.
Absolutely.
You were talking about some of the emphasis on the more technical type of programs like cybersecurity. Is there still a heavy emphasis on history and English in Southern University or most universities?
Well, as it relates to technical versus the humanities. So we do have a very healthy humanities program and interdisciplinary program. But this is what I tell folks all the time. It doesn't matter whether or not you major in a humanity. There are certain skills that employers want. And if you leave the college experience, what I have in technical skills, you can't function. It doesn't matter whether you're a history major, art major. In fact, a lot of the stuff related to arts is going to digital arts. And you think about mass communications. I mean, mass communications is an industry where technology drives how fast we get news, right? But that's a humanity, right? But think about how much of an impact technology has had on how we receive news, deliver news, and communications. So the point about those technological advances is this. You don't have to major in computer science or computer engineering to be technologically savvy. It's a requirement. In fact, I first saw it with the advent of AI on the impact of law students. Because AI affected lawyers first more than anybody else. Because we now have programs that can draft up letters of recommendation, draft up a petition, draft briefs. We have a lawyer who used a brief that was totally generated by AI in an actual case with references and citations to cases that didn't exist. And the lawyer didn't check those things, and he got sanctioned by a federal court. So yes, it's real. We have to talk to students and have them use AI. What's the number one thing that folks are worried about? Is this report or paper really generated by the student, or did AI generate this report? So there are all kinds of tools now to determine if these are generated by AI tools versus real people tools. It's here. Yes, sir.
How are universities connected to high schools and community colleges?
How are universities connected to high schools, community colleges? Well, one, at least within the Southern University system, we have a 2-year community college called SUSLA. But we also have a great relationship with Baton Rouge Community College. I want to develop a better relationship with River Parishes Community College, for example. Those are locals. And then the high schools, I think we have missed an opportunity to get into the high schools even more so, because there are actual now career paths. So we have dual education credits. Students can receive high school credits and college credits at the same time, so that essentially what happens is when they enroll in college, they have a year or two already of college credit that can shorten their time to a degree. In fact, at Southern University Shreveport, I think almost 100 students receive both a high school diploma and associate's degree at the same commencement. And we see that the dual enrollment numbers at Southern University are growing, and we want to encourage that. And we want to work well with K through 12 systems to create pipelines to professions, pipelines to industries, pipelines that make students really, really technologically capable of dealing with the new jobs in America. One way we're doing it at Southern University is through e-gaming. So we have an e-sports lab that really promotes e-gaming, but not to play the games, but to deal with the systems, with I guess, skills. So cybersecurity skills, you learn that. How about coding? What about Internet of Things? There's so many things that come, and we have a great relationship with IBM where we provide those skills to our students using boot camps. They do 3-week boot camps where they pick up those skills. So we have to be very, very connected through with K through 12 systems in the state of Louisiana. And we also have to deal with adult learners. We have so many people that have stopped out from higher education. that need to return to higher education in order for them to get a promotion or start off a new career.
Time for one more question. There is one. That's it, Chancellor Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you for this great opportunity.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Chancellor.
you're welcome.
July 1st?
Yes, July 1.
Okay. Oops, be careful, be careful. You got it?
Got it.
Okay. So Chancellor Pierre will begin his tenure as Chancellor of the Southern University Baton Rouge campus on July 1st, and we'll be back